Okay, for new business, we're going to have a public hearing for determination of adoption of Township of Teaneck's Open Space and Recreation Plan, the OSRP, an element of the Township's master plan. The adoption plan update will qualify the Township for grant funding through the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection and Program for the Open Space Preservation. Please step forward.
So my name is Barbara Davis. I'm Vice President of Programs of the Land Conservancy of New Jersey, and I'm a licensed planner.
You swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give this board is the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes. So the Land Conservancy of New Jersey was hired by the Township of Teaneck to update your. So not. So the
Much closer
Township.
to it?
Yes. Right here.
You gotta swallow them.
Sorry.
It's okay.
So, and is it okay now? Okay. So the Land Conservancy was hired by the Township of Teaneck to update your open space and recreation plan. The Land Conservancy completed your 2007 Open Space and Recreation Plan, which was approved by the Department of Environmental Protection Green Acres Program, so you could apply for funding for land acquisition. Green Acres requires that your plan be updated every 10 years. Your plan is now out of date. You would no longer qualify for state funding for land acquisition. The municipality, recognizing that, has hired the Land Conservancy to go ahead and update your plan.
Someone that knows technology better than two of us. Here else the township computer, so they may be working, may not.
It's a computer, doesn't it? Location.
Chair, just for the record, notice of this meeting was provided to the record, published within the requirements of an amendment to a master plan. Notice was also provided to all municipalities that have joined the Township of Teaneck, as this plan affects all areas around the town. For evidence of caution, it goes to every town. The county planning board, they must change.
I'm comfortable continuing if the board wants me to continue. If the board wants to give it a minute for the presentation to come up, I'm comfortable.
No, continue, go ahead.
I'm sorry?
You're comfortable on this, go ahead.
Okay, good.
Mark, just keep it to a whisper while
Okay,
go ahead.
great. So there.
Maybe it's like the 50s and 80s areas.
Since I have it up, I've got to use it. Okay. All right. So the municipality, there are several steps in completing an open space. Oh, you're the best. There's several steps in completing an open space. Great. Open space and recreation plan update follows the Green Acres guidelines. What I'm going to do tonight is go over, kind of in an overview section, what the major highlights are of the plan update. I will try to provide when differences are between the 2007 plan and the 2019 plan. The role of the planning board this evening is to comment on the plan, ask questions if you have them, and then consider it for adoption as an element of the master plan. Green Acres requires that the plan be adopted as an element of your master plan in order to receive state funding. And Teaneck is also engaged in the Sustainable Jersey program, and this will garner 10 points through your Sustainable Jersey initiative once the plan is adopted as an element of the master plan. So the first thing that we did, and we worked with the Municipal Open Space Trust Committee, is to review the goals from the 2007 plan and consider how they should be updated in 2019. I do have to say that your 2007 goals work in 2019. The committee that was established in 2007 to create your open space and recreation plan was an interdisciplinary committee. It's one of the only towns that I've worked with that really worked hard to make sure that different people from different committees and different sections of the municipality was involved in the development of the open space and recreation plan. The Land Conservancy has completed over 150 land conservation plans throughout the state. So when I say that with a lot of background and experience. The goal that was added in 2019 is the final one, which is join the National 10-Minute Walk Program, which the municipality has done. And what that means is that your goal is that every resident should be able to walk outside of their house and get to a municipal park or public open space. And that is something that Teaneck should be very proud of. Next slide. The next part of the open space plan update is to give an analysis of your municipal open space trust fund. The concept is that if you collect public dollars for land acquisition, how have they been spent and how they've been matched? Teaneck has done a very good job in terms of spending its funding and collecting it. You've spent nearly 80% on recreation development projects and about 20% on land acquisition projects. To give you a little bit of background, your open space trust fund, you call it MOST, the Municipal Open Space Trust, was approved by voters in 2004, which is on the earlier side for municipalities, especially municipalities that are really kind of the urban-suburban mix that Teaneck is. You set it at 1 cent, which is the minimum required for green acres, so I would encourage you to keep it at 1 cent. If it goes below that, you won't qualify for the planning incentive program. And I do want to take 1 minute to explain what the planning incentive program is. Green Acres has 2 programs for land acquisition. You have the planning incentive program and the project-specific program. So if I, Mrs. Davis, own land in the township of Teaneck, and I agree that I'm going to sell it to the town for open space and recreation, let's say for $500,000, because my land is really great. And you say, fabulous, I want to buy your land, and you apply to Green Acres, project specific, to buy my property to get a 50% matching grant. So the application is close to 60 pages. It's a total pain in the neck. And that money is tied to my property. So Teaneck is committed, it applies for money to buy my property, and then I say, I'm really sorry, didn't mean to do that, I changed my mind, I'm not selling it to Teaneck. So not only do you lose the opportunity to buy my land, but you lose the money that was tied to that property. Teaneck is smart enough, and was smart enough in 2004, to set up your open space trust and to develop the open space and recreation plan so you could get into the planning incentive program. Planning incentive program is like a credit account with the state of New Jersey. That you say, I, the township of Teaneck, am submitting this open space and recreation plan to give me the flexibility to acquire any of the properties that I have identified in my open space plan for the reasons that I have included in my open space plan. Love the town. You submit the plan to Green Acres, which you do. Green Acres says, great, we're going to earmark $1 million for the township of Teaneck to purchase property within the municipality, and then you draw down on that account. So if you take the same example, I, Mrs. Davis, want to sell my property, I changed my mind, but Miss Glenna, she does want to sell the property, you can take that same $250,000 and apply it to her property because it was identified in your open space plan. Let's go to the next slide. So the municipality has purchased 3 properties with your open space trust fund. 2 are located on Pomander Walk. Next slide. And the other one is located on River Road. These are good properties. They protect historic and cultural features. They protect natural features. They were done through public input. When I did your original open space and recreation plan, the first public meeting was part of a municipal governing body meeting in this room. It was super hot. The air conditioning wasn't working as well as it could. And the room was packed because 640 River Road was being considered and the owners had expressed hesitation in terms of selling it. So the meeting was very interesting, and it was, from my perspective, it was very exciting because there was a lot of public conversation about why you would want to purchase land for recreation. So not only did the municipality purchase that property, your volunteers and your professional staff have transformed it into a beautiful garden and trail that's fully accessible, and the Land Conservancy was very fortunate to be involved in applying and successfully receiving grant funds on behalf of the municipality to develop that property. Next slide. So this slide is key to your open space map, and I've brought several copies with me. They're to my right, and we'll be leaving those with the municipality. They'll be in the recreation department. And the purpose of the open space map, and it's a map that's required by Green Acres, is to give an inventory of land within the municipality and how it's used. We use the tax assessor database. We do not use the zoning map, because the tax assessor database gives you a pretty accurate view about how property is being used. So what do you have in the township of Teaneck? You have one large county park, which is Overpeck County Park and Golf Course. You have 25 municipal parks. Public properties such as the municipal building, the firehouse, the library. You have 87 acres of properties. Education, religious, charitable, and exempt properties total another 186. Undeveloped Class 1 property. Traditionally, that's considered, what you would look at for open space preservation. You have 26 acres. We looked at residential properties greater than 1/2 acre. These are properties that are potentially subdividable, could be, if they're next to a park, provide an opportunity for expansion, commercial and industrial, railroad, and transportation. Next slide. So this is a clip of the open space map. It shows the Voti Park, Windsor Park in green, Argonne Park. It shows public and properties such as the Teaneck Armory up in the northern part of the municipality, and educational properties. Next slide. This is another clip of the open space map showing the county holdings, and the photograph highlights the land owned by Teaneck Creek Conservancy, which is, I think, a really neat amenity within the municipality. Next slide. Teaneck has 5 apartment projects that are under construction. We identified those on the open space map because those are ones that, if you look at the traditional map, maybe they would be an opportunity for preservation, but they're currently being actively constructed. So they're really not, at this point, an opportunity for any type of expansion of municipal parks. Go ahead. The Route 4 Greenbelt. So we highlighted this and discussed this at length in the plan, and there's a detailed table that goes through the Route 4 Greenbelt along with some documentation. The Route 4 Greenbelt is a really neat, amenity for the municipality. Teaneck, when you did your original master plan, identified the Greenbelt as one that was important to the municipality to buffer the residents from the developing highway corridor. And the municipality has kept these properties undeveloped. But there's been some question about how they're restricted, are they deed restricted, how is it going about, what could be potentially developed, what couldn't be potentially developed. So the purpose of the open space plan is to inventory that, provide documentation and recommendations. So we have done that. And the recommendation of the Land Conservancy is that these need to be formally resolved, added to your recreation and open space inventories. There's no longer a question. And the state of New Jersey is going to require that as well. Next slide. The final step in the open space and recreation plan is to give an idea of what the conceptual design would be for our parks and recreation system. It does not mean that you're going to acquire all of those properties or you're going to be able to permanently connect them. But the concept is that through a partnership, these become your hubs in the municipality. And I'm going to say we did not change anything from the 2007 plan. This was developed in 2007 plan. It works in 2019, and you are in a stepwise progression implementing the recommendations of the 2007 plan and into 2019. Next slide. And this shows one of the other greenways within the municipality along the Hackensack River Greenway from Andreas Park and the Senator Matthew Feldman Nature Preserve. Next slide. Milton Bodie Park, beautiful park. I mean, downright just a great recreational amenity for your residents. Next slide. And Argonne Park in the northern section of the municipality. So at the council meeting a week and a half ago, we presented a similar presentation to the council. The meeting was very well attended, and I have to commend the MOST committee for wanting to make sure that this was presented to the township council. At that time, there was testimony about asking for the feasibility study to be done on Argonne Park, for the municipality to consider covering the expenses for completing a feasibility study about what the future of Argonne Park could look like. There was a general agreement at that meeting And it was agreed to that this would be added as a recommendation in the open space plan in the first year of implementation. Next slide. This is MPEG County Park. Next slide. So the plan ends with recommendations and an action plan. So again, this is a growth from your 2007 plan. Your 2007 plan also included a series of recommendations, 1, 3, and 5 year, which kind of cracks me up because Green Acres now requires it to be a 10-year plan. So it probably should be called short-term, mid-term, and long-term, but just kind of go with the flow here. So within 1 year, we recommended that you adopt the plan as an element of the master plan. So you can knock that one off pretty quick because I know you're going to do that. To submit the plan to Green Acres, and we'll help the municipality if they have any questions about that submittal. Every plan that the Land Conservancy has written has been approved by the Green Acres program without comment and usually with commendation. We want you to talk about developing a plan for engaging the local community about the future of the Route 4 Greenbelt, to update your recreation open space inventory. And this is important for the chair of the planning board to recognize as well. The recreation open space inventory is basically a contract between the township and the state of New Jersey that says, I, the township, own this property for recreation and conservation, and I will only use this property for recreation and conservation. And it's signed by the chair of the planning board and the chief executive of the municipality, which in this case would be the mayor or the township administrator. The ROSI is triggered when you go to accept funding from Green Acres. So the next time you go to accept funding from the state, they're going to say you need to update your ROSI. So that's something that the municipality will do. It does not require a resolution from the planning board or a resolution from the governing body unless this body requires that when the chair signs something. Next slide. So,
go back to this one there.
Go back, yes.
On the bottom left sentence, it's supposed to be resolved any inconsistency?
Yep. I must have skipped a word. Sometimes my brain works
No, I'm
faster
just
than
saying, I'm
mine.
trying to understand.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to, I may have questions. I wait till you guys go back there or ask you now?
Whatever you like.
I'm just trying to understand the comments here on the third line and on the references to the Greenbelt, because they're talking about it very generally. Develop a plan for engaging local community recreation on the future of the Route 4 Greenbelt. And then you say here to ensure their protection, those bases include properties along the Route 4 Greenbelt. So I'm really trying to understand that exactly specifically what you're talking about here.
Right, it goes back to what I said earlier when we were talking about the Route 4 Greenbelt. The first step would really be to make sure that the properties that have been identified as part of the Route 4 Greenbelt are included in your recreation open space inventory. When they're listed on your recreation and open space inventory, it triggers a series of steps. Once you complete the recreation open space inventory and signed by the chair of the planning board, your municipal attorney would then notify the county clerk and the properties become deed restricted. It's attached to the deed. The reason that that's important, I can give you several examples. We work with a lot of towns that are very similar to Teaneck. I would call them mature towns that have a large inventory of their lands developed. And it's very easy for information to get lost. So we had one community that the owner of a Dunkin' Donuts came in and asked them if they could buy a sliver of the municipal property that was next to Dunkin' Donuts so that they could expand their parking lot. The municipality said, not a problem, it's just a sliver, we can sell it to you for $15,000. They did a title search, nothing came up, and they sold the property. The state became aware of it, and it turns out that it was on the municipal recreation open space inventory. It had state and federal easements on it, and the municipality had to undo the sale. Luckily, they could do that, otherwise the penalty is severe. So having it on the recreation open space inventory, making sure that the municipal attorney puts that restriction on it when it files with the county clerk, attaches it to the title, so if you ever go through that process, the property would not be sold for anything at all. It would remain as parks and open space, which really is the intent of the Route 4 properties, which are noted by the state of New Jersey, which are noted by your tax assessor, and in the municipal documentation. So finish the process and get it on your recreation open space inventory. The bullet earlier than that, in terms of developing a plan for engaging local and community recommendations on the future of the Route 4 Greenbelt, you have this really nice amenity that buffers both sides of Route 4. You are very fortunate, and I mean that sincerely, to have an engaged community. This is an opportunity to create a stakeholder group that's going to help you manage and watch out for that Route 4 Greenbelt. You know when you enter the township of Teaneck. Teaneck is different than every other municipality that surrounds it because of your Greenbelt, because of your tree-lined streets, because of your parks and open space that are within walking distance of your residents. So this is one recommendation to continue that process.
Mr. Chair.
Everybody have a question to ask?
Thank you. I have a number of questions, but I'll hold it just to the specific area right this moment. Regarding the Route 4 area, I'm encouraged by your recommendations and what they're doing, but I guess to put it in simple language, my question was going to be, what does it take to make it impervious to municipal government at a later date? Does your recommendation carry this kind of permanence and in simple language? Does it lock it in?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
So devil's advocate for a second, for the people who would say they don't want to do that because they don't want to lock it in. You know, they would not want that to happen. And it is potentially the fact that it hasn't gone all the way. Is it just I'm just asking from the devil's advocate, is it still potentially reversible, or it's non-reversible and this is just a final step, or this final step makes it non-reversible?
I just want to show you something. Okay. I just want to answer your question with the map, if that's all right.
Or different parts of it have different sets?
Yes, exactly. That's why I'm going back to the map. So it's a very good question, Chairman. So if you look at this map, anything that is that very, very bright green is already on your recreation and open space inventory. And you can see that along the Route 4 corridor, nothing is that very, very bright green. The items that are in the parcels that are in the dark green are the ones that have been identified by the tax assessor and by Green Acres as ones that are part of the Route 4 Greenbelt. And there's documentation from the state that clearly states that those are part of the Greenbelt for various reasons. And that documentation is included in your open space and recreation plan appendix. The parcels that are in purple are municipally owned, but there's no documentation that we could find that shows that they're part of the Greenbelt. So the recommendation of the Land Conservancy is to start easy. The ones that are the dark green, which again, this is in your plan and it's very clearly identified which are which, should be added to your recreation and open space inventory. The properties that are in purple really should be studied by your municipal engineer, your municipal planner, to determine whether or not it's appropriate to put them on the recreation and open space inventory. Because to the chair's point, once they're on the recreation and open space inventory, they cannot be used for any purpose other than parks and open space. I'm a firm believer in doing the easy things first. The easy thing is to list the properties that the state considers and your tax assessor already identifies as your Route 4 Greenbelt and put them on your ROSI. The next time you go to accept state funding, they're going to request it. They're waiting for it. So show them progress, and that's what I'm going to do.
Thank you. Two parcels of land on the Greenbelt seem to be contentious over a period of time, especially contentious. Several others that are contentious. The law office, Siegel and Siegel, and the property adjacent to it on the east side, going towards the city. What is their status? Is the the wooded parcel already mandated as Greenbelt, or is it privately owned? And the Siegel and Siegel, are there any restrictions, or could there be restrictions in terms of its future use to ensure that it does go towards greenbelt status?
Right, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, but on the slide in front of you where you have the number 4, the property just below it is the orange is the Siegel and Siegel, and the purple is the municipal property. Okay, so everybody see what I'm seeing? Okay. Yep. Yes.
Just above and to the left of Overbeck?
Chair, would you mind pointing to again? You have it.
Yeah, that's what I thought, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Right above Overbeck.
So the Siegel and Siegel property is privately owned. It's assessed as commercial property. There are no restrictions on it in terms of, preservation because it's privately owned and it's not preserved. The municipality can certainly approach the owners of Siegel and Siegel and make them an offer to negotiate to purchase that property for open space. The purple property in between Overpeck County Park and the Siegel and Siegel property has not been identified by your assessor as part of the green belt that we could find. So that one is one that should be discussed.
Right, so what's the status difference you say between like the green here and the purple?
The green there, the 60, let's say it's 002 lot 10.
Right, 602, right.
Right,
The
that
10
has,
The 10 versus the purple.
right, that we could find some documentation it's been identified as part of the green belt. That's not to say that the purple property doesn't have that documentation, we just couldn't find that. So,
But Rossi-wise, neither ones.
neither one. Okay? And again, there may be comments from the public that would question that, and that's something you should listen to. Yes, Mr. Rose.
Yes, thank you. The area on number 10, is that the area that was considered for use of signage along?
No,
Which area was that?
I believe that was the purple one. No? Yeah, Mr. Powers is shaking his head no.
You don't want to pull out the billboards?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was bottom of. That was always right by the
That
house.
was,
End of 10.
Okay,
So I
so
stand
but
corrected, I'm
isn't it a
sorry.
designated area then?
Yes.
The green belt?
yes.
Good to know, thank you.
Thank you, sorry. Okay, all right, so I'm pretty much done. The next steps for this are, I'm just gonna finish my thought, just if it's all right.
I just wanted to go back to, just to clarify between the two conversations here. If it's green, we can't touch it now. Green on your map, we can't touch it
The
now.
bright green, if you could go back to that.
Bright green, but the
Right.
dark green is you've identified as green belt, we can't touch that either.
No, the dark green, what I've said is that we have documentation that shows that it's part of the Route 4 green belt, but we can't find any deed restrictions that says that it's deed restricted as open space. So the recommendation is that you put it on your recreation and open space inventory, finish that process, and then it would be permanently deed restricted.
Right, but it is part of the green belt.
We
It's
believe
just-
it
It
is.
doesn't make it permanent.
Well, if it's part of the green belt, it's permanent on the green belt side,
But
maybe
the-
not on the township side.
The green belt, this is municipal property. So there's one owner, and it's the township of Teaneck.
Yeah, but if the township of Teaneck purchased that property under restricted use, then regardless of who owns that property, it's restricted use. So whether it's bright green or dark green, that property is restricted by statute of somebody, whether it's us or the state, who gave us the money for greenbelt, that nothing can be done with that property.
So some of that property was acquired with the state of New Jersey. Most of it was not. So the reason that I keep going, like, the reason I keep going back to it is that in the state of New Jersey, and with the evolution of municipal government and the change in staffing, the best thing to do for the green belt is to put it on your recreation and open space inventory. It eliminates all questions about that property, and it permanently restricts it, both in the deed and the title. Very important to do.
Explain to the other side how, you're telling how we can make it permanently.
Right.
Explain to how the other side how it's possible that something that may be green belt, that's green, could possibly not necessarily remain that way. Explain the downside.
Right, and I'm going to answer your question, and if I don't go in the direction that you wanted, not in terms of the answer, but if I'm not answering your question, just stop me in the middle so that I make sure I follow the thought.
Councilman Kaplan knows how to answer.
Okay. So right now, those properties are not listed on your recreation open space inventory. There are certain properties that, in the plan do document that there's some kind of state funding associated with it. Let's say that one of the properties that the municipality would be interested in divesting would be ones that don't have that state funding. If you went ahead and decided to do an alternate use with that property, the likelihood is that the state of New Jersey would come back and question it because
If it were Rossi or Greenbelt?
if it was on the Greenbelt, the state of New Jersey would come back and question the municipality vigorously on the change in use because historically it has been thought of as your preserved open space. I'm not an attorney, and I couldn't speak to the legalities of what the state of New Jersey would or would not do, but I know from my experience working in land conservation and with municipalities of similar age and similar properties, that if they decided that it was a diversion, the penalty process for the municipality is severe.
I guess maybe I don't want to get too hung up on it, I'll try one last time, is that if the dark green on your map is as identified as Greenbelt, is indeed all Greenbelt it is, for either this body or the council, what's the practical difference to our ability to use that property?
If it's on the, right now, theoretically, if it's on the Greenbelt and it's not on the Rossi, theoretically the municipality could change its use. Theoretically.
But they have to defend it to the Greenbelt.
But they have to defend it to the state of New Jersey.
Right.
Okay? And the likelihood that the state of New Jersey would support that change in use is low. Right? So, and it creates expense for the municipality to go ahead and say, we want to change the use, and then fight with the state of New Jersey as to whether or not you're able to change the use. The likelihood of you changing that use, I think, is going to be low. So just make it easy for yourself, because the other thing is you are going to continue to apply to Green Acres for funding.
Is there something also about, I don't remember when the stats is, it's vague to me, it goes back to what we were last, a long time ago, it was 11, but when you can do, like, swap land.
That's a really good question. So, and I'll repeat it, and again, if I go in the wrong direction, just stop me. So, the state of New Jersey has a program, which is a good point, that if you own municipal property and it's not on the Rossi, okay, and it doesn't have any deed restrictions on it, and you want to give it to the state of New Jersey, that it could be state land, they would allow that to happen, and it could serve as a swap if you're have a diversion in another area. Teaneck, I think, doesn't have the bulk of that state, of that type of property to make that
I don't
swap.
have a lot of free land.
No. So, which is a huge issue, because if for some reason you do want to do a diversion, so you want to take something off your Rossi and use it for another purpose, it would create a huge problem for the municipality.
Right, so I guess, and maybe it's a percentage thing, it sounded from the opening part of the presentation that we were pretty good, especially for this kind of community, on the percentages and what was Rossi, like, and then the reason why I'm trying to hone in on the dark green versus the is that if I'm already restricted in that, my question is, why would I want to move any of the purple into a green, because now I'm restricting myself even more? Like, what would be any advantage
Right.
to moving the purple into green?
And I mentioned that's actually an advantage to do it because it locks it in. And that's-
Well, I would argue it's a disadvantage because it locks it in.
I understand.
Right, and that's an excellent point. And that's why I strongly recommend that if the municipality wants to put, now we're only talking about the purple properties here, that if you decide.
Dark purple brown.
Yes, like by Coolidge Park, you see there's
Right,
purple
as opposed to
properties.
the well pink, right?
Yes, exactly, well put. That if the municipality decides they want to put any of their municipal land that's not currently on the Rossi, you must, and I'm capital letters, go through your township engineer and your township planner. Because if there are plans for any future municipal infrastructure, such as a pipe, for whatever purpose, that can't be on your ROSI. So you really have to think forward when you put municipally owned property on the ROSI. In many cases, it's appropriate, and in many cases, you need to make sure that you're thinking future. So the recommendation, like I said, from the Land Conservancy doing this plan, is to put the dark green ones on your ROSI. Those are ones that we can justify, and there's documentation that supports that. The next step would be to really look at some of those purple properties and see whether or not they make sense to put on your recreation open space inventory. You have a good engineer, you have a good planner. These are great next steps for them.
Just to clarify for them, I know the answer, so I just ask you. One's on a ROSI, or you're getting it off the ROSI?
Don't want to take it off the ROSI.
What will the state of Illinois? I know the answer is no, I've tried.
I'm sorry.
What the state of Illinois, I've tried.
The state does allow you to remove things from the recreation open space inventory. It's called a diversion. You need the approval of the State House Commission in order to do that. If we go back to my example of the municipality that sold a sliver, and it really was a sliver of land, to Dunkin' Donuts to expand their parking lot, the minimum penalty was a replacement of 20-to-1 in land and in land value. And because it was done with federal easements, the state of New Jersey told us they did not know what the penalty would be, but certainly higher than 20-to-1. So in a municipality like Teaneck, that would be something that you just wouldn't be able to do easily. Mr. Rose?
Second, please.
Okay, my question simply is, okay, looking at the purple and your recommendation of placing it on, for the most part, as open space for recreation purposes, in your experience, is it best that those properties or the characteristics of those neighborhoods are residentially zoned properties? Because it appears like Coolidge Park and surrounding areas of the purple are kind of like residential neighborhoods, as opposed to seeing purple areas or purple properties in commercial areas. Is that pretty much the mindset, or?
Again, it's a property by property basis. Me, I would look at the purple property next to Overpeck County Park and take a look at that. And I asked my engineer and my planner. I actually, okay, it's going to be me and I'm king of Teaneck Township. I would say that the next step is for the Municipal Open Space Trust Committee to look at those properties and to give recommendations to the governing bodies as to the allocation of the municipal property along the Greenbelt that's not identified as Greenbelt properties. That's why you have a Municipal Open Space Trust Committee. That's why you have.
I'm sure there will be members of this board who would just easily say, hey, that's on the highway, let's make it a hotel, and so let's not make it part of the Greenbelt, so.
And that's why you have a most,
Right.
in order to balance all of those objectives. And I think Teaneck does a really good job balancing your different needs.
Thank you. Two quick comments and then all the questions. I will mention that in 2007, the OSRP, which we consider a pretty good document, Joey Bodner and myself were on the planning board at that time. I listened to you give this presentation 3 times, and I got the document by email and read it pretty thoroughly. And I have to tell you that I'm amazed that every time I look at it, I see another element and say, oh my. So it's just so comprehensive and detailed and a terrific amount of information. Do you make recommendations? When I look at the idea that of properties, we spend 20% of the budget spending, and the rest is on facilities, etc. Is this a good ratio? Because when I look at the word most, the 2 middle letters are OS, open space, and I always think of, boy, shouldn't the bulk of the money go towards open space purchase and acquisition?
So my recommendation, it's your municipality. So the decisions mandating the use of the open space trust fund are ones that should be provided by most and approved by the governing body. Your enabling resolution for most is that it should be spent 50-50 on recreation and open space unless there's a supermajority of the governing body, of which there has been for the votes to approve the allocations for recreation. I believe that your most committee should be providing recommendations to the governing body every year, every other year on potential acquisitions, and having a meaningful conversation about that. It is very difficult to buy land in Bergen County. And buying land, period, is a lengthy process. For the municipality to purchase 3 properties using your open space trust fund is one that you should feel very good about. I do believe that there is opportunity for future acquisition in the township of Teaneck. And I do believe that with the different stakeholder groups that you have, that those property identifications can be done. Teaneck Township, when they submit this to Green Acres, you should be thoughtful about when you submit it and when you apply for funds. Because the state, when it was first doing it in 2005, would allocate the funding and let it sit. They don't let that happen anymore. So you want to apply for real acquisitions. I think Mr. Rose makes a good point, but I do want to make sure that you know that it's not that you had the open space trust and haven't used it for acquisition. You've just used it for a large percentage on facility improvement, which is enjoyed by your residents.
Almost done. You said you're leaving printed material at the rec center. Can I assume you're leaving it also with the planning board and perhaps the library? And also, is there some kind of way to get the wonderful material that we got by electronics to leave it on the township website as a link?
So the township website in several locations does have the open space and recreation plan in electronic format. I was on your website yesterday and found it on the planning board. I was very excited to see it on your page, and it's been on other pages as well. The materials that we're leaving with the recreation department are the maps to my right, the large posters, and Glenna will make sure that they're posted appropriately in the recreation department.
Great. And lastly, remind us of the time frame for us to discuss and possibly implement your recommendation.
Right. So again, the role of the planning board is to adopt the plan as an element of the master plan. Tonight is the first meeting where you discuss it, offer questions, we'll amend it as needed, and I'll provide a final copy for then the planning board to consider for adoption. My recommendation, we're in the month of July, is that you finish this process, within the next 1 to 2 months, so that you're all set and submitted to the state. The state's going to have funding rounds now every year, which is different than what they've had over the past several years, because they have signed the legislation to make sure that the funding is permanent and the funding is going to be available on an annual basis.
So maybe a silly question. I wasn't here in 2007, but you said that this is the same plan that was adopted then, with the exception of the 10-minute walk. So all of this was approved by the planning board in 2007 and then went to the council and was approved, but none of it was, nobody went ahead with the plan? There were no changes made?
So, to clarify, I'm really glad that you question my words. It's a good thing to do. So, it's a good thing. So the open space and recreation plan done in 2007 provided the basis for your open space program. The goals that were done in 2007 were identified through public input, through your committee that developed the plan, and through the Land Conservancy's guidance. The first step in the update in 2019 was to look at those goals. And what was decided by your committee and through public input, we had a meeting in November that was attended by 80 people. It was a big meeting that was there several hours, was that the goals from 2007 were reaffirmed in 2019, and the only addition was the 10-minute walk. So it's not that it's the same or different, it's that they were discussed and reaffirmed in 2019. Great. Okay, so thank you. So the question is, were they implemented? So the 2007 plan had a similar action program to it. And we went through that action program from 2007 when we reviewed it in 2019 to update it for 2019. You've achieved several of the items that you identified in 2007. The biggest which is the acquisition of the River Road property and the development of it. And the action plan has been updated in 2019 to reflect current objectives and goals. So the plan is not the same as 2007. It's an update. All the analysis of the trust fund is new. The analysis of the greenbelt is new. It's a pretty comprehensive document and one that will work for the next 10 years for the municipality.
And just another silly question. I know that the 10-minute walk started in the Environmental Commission.
Yes.
Who did the walking? Like how did we figure out that that's actually so?
So that would be a good question for the Environmental Commission. I know that the Trust for Public Land has accepted that, and you're now part of that program. So my recommendation would be to follow up with the Environmental Commission.
She got it. Howard?
Just the last thing regarding all these committees and
You
whatnot.
can't have a last thing, you've had 7 last things.
This is the second last thing. That's allowable, I understand, under New Jersey law. With all the different committees and the recommendations and the this and that, can your recommendation include some kind of text indicating that what the communication process is, that there should be hearings or there should be statements, presentations made by these committees to the planning board, to the council, just because I don't think we hear about what's going on from one side of the cube to the other side of the cube. It doesn't reach.
Thank you.
I just want to piggyback on that, because one of your bullet points there, and I think the fourth one down, where you speak about reaching out to residents to provide continued dialogue on future improvements to municipal parks, recreation areas, and expanding outreach initiatives to include various social media platforms. So what is your vision in that bullet point?
So I'm going to say that I think Teaneck has the diversity in age and to have a robust conversation about the use and the development of your parks and open space. At the Township Council meeting, very passionate set of conversations about the feasibility study for Argonne Park. And that's exactly what this municipality, whether it's Argonne Park or another park, wants to be able to hear. You've had people who don't look like me. They're not in their late 50s. There are people who are younger, who use the parks, who have young children, and really want to see a future for the parks, for their children, and for their future. And I was very excited about that. And I think that you really do have the constituency to make that happen. I think the challenge in this day and age with any municipality is the how to reach out to them. And I truly believe that having an active social media presence will help that. A good town to look at for that, as an example, is Mount Olive Township in Morris County. They have a very active social media platform for their recreation program that is bringing in a very diverse set of demographics into their municipal park system.
I would just comment that I concur on your comment about seeing the diversity, because the young people that were represented that evening was really refreshing to see.
It's exciting.
All right, at this point, we'll open up to the public for comments and questions.
Hi, good evening. My name is Dr. Tanya Don Raggio Ashley. I live at 33 West Tryon Avenue. I'm so sorry.
Yes.
Tanya Pagan Raggio Ashley. Tanya. address again, or we're good?
Mark, I'm trying.
So I wanted to thank Ms. Davis.
To the mic, please, Grace.
Just come closer to the mic.
Oh, I feel like I'm-
Yes, like that.
Okay.
Yes.
I wanted to thank Ms. Haskin Davis for an excellent plan. I just wanted to mention two things which I mentioned at the council meeting. One is that we lost a tremendous number of trees. Part of that was due to Hurricane Sandy, as well as, I'm not going to use the term global warming, but for a lot of climatic reasons, the trees are older. We've lost many, many trees over the past. In addition, in the area from where the 7-Eleven is on Teaneck Road, which is close to the firehouse, all the way to Tryon Avenue, almost every single tree that's on the sidewalk has been cut down. When I mentioned that at the town council meeting, I believe it was the manager said that they were going to be replacing that with 72 trees. I walk my dog and I walk up and down the street. And what they did is there are small wide areas to put place trees. I don't believe there's 72 places for trees. And he mentioned the different kinds of trees, and it was hard to hear all of them, but I don't believe they're the same types of trees, and I was just hoping that could be included, something to the effect of those changes in our trees, because it's really a dramatic difference. The other is there's a small area of land that I believe it's in the park that I think it's being used for electrical grid. It's being used for a purpose other than what the park was intended for. And I see it on the maps or when I looked on my phone, or I haven't tried to look at the maps here because it's dark, but I didn't know if that would be included in the plan, and I also wanted to address the planning board. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's a small piece of land right next to the bridge over the overpass. It used to be used for like skateboarding, and now that's been torn down and something else is being put.
Is it something in Bolton Park you're talking about?
Yeah, it's that little piece of area. I just didn't see anything on the plans addressing how that's been changed, and I didn't know if that's something that would be in the plan, because it is a change. Okay. Other than that, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bernard Pearson, Teaneck resident, Hurlingham Hospital born, and Teaneck Public School attendee. On the, I think it was Tuesday the 12th, 16th, my organization was here to represent support for what Barbara presented tonight, specifically for the Argonne Park feasibility study. My organization, which is the Girl is Good Foundation, is also responsible for bringing the idea of the splash pad to Teaneck via the Parks Playground Recreation Advisory Board, which I am a member of also. So I'm just asking this board to highly consider what Ms. Barbara Davis has presented. We've worked really closely with Ms. Crockett to make sure that the splash pad was a success from vendor implementation, from vendor selection all the way through implementation. Our group actually pounded the pavement to raise public awareness for the splash pad and to put out a brick campaign to raise funds for that initiative. Actually walking into Mr. Rose's office there on his library there on Cedar Lane. So we're just asking that this committee really consider what we are trying to do from a feasibility perspective for Argonne Park. We want to all learn. We want to be intelligent followers as far as the project itself. We want to go in and do the right thing and make sure that we are not disturbing, but also adding back to the environment. We're looking to anything we take down, we want to build two back for as far as trees are concerned. We're looking for the project to be all green leaf project and use reservation ponds to make sure that we're not disturbing the community. Again, I'm from the north side of Teaneck, over by Argonne Park. That area has become somewhat of a dumping ground as far as what's been happening, people driving by just dumping things. So we as the residents, me speaking as a resident, I will make a pledge to this group that I will also reach out and secure the support of the neighbors in that area and make sure that we are raising awareness. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
I'm Deanne Ip, live at 708 Pomander Walk.
Sorry, the last name.
What is last?
IPP. I, P as in Patrick, P as in Patrick.
Been a long time. Well,
Yeah, you. I'm still here, doing well, thank you. I guess I'm addressing specific details in the plan. I don't want to take up too much time, but because I live on Pomander Walk and I'm familiar with Pomander Walk, so the plan mentions the greenway walking through the Teaneck Leaf transfer station, which is happening right, you have a Teaneck Greenway, and the Greenway plans to walk through the Leaf transfer station. But the plan does not mention that the Leaf transfer station is designated by the state of New Jersey as a brownfield, which means that it's a contaminated site. And the fact is that there's no sign for the public. The public is being told this is a green area, go for a walk, And it happened a couple of weeks ago that one of the senior citizens from 5 Star Premier, in response to the advocacy from the Friends of the Greenway group, went, and a lot of these people are somewhat senile or have ambulation difficulties, went for a walk through the Leaf transfer station, thinking it would be like a green walk in a park. She went through the mud, she got stuck in the mud, she got lost, she got panicked. She called for help on her cell phone, and Teaneck sent 2 fire trucks, 1 ambulance, and 2 police cars to do a search and rescue. So my point is, I feel that if this place is a brownfield, it deserves soil studies so we can know what the contamination is. Because the fact is, people are told they're walking on a green place. The rough surface is buried washing machines, shopping carts, and tires, and God knows what else. And unless the soil is studied, we will have no idea the true extent of contamination, which is like keeping your head buried in the sand. What you don't know won't hurt you, but I think the public deserves to be informed that with a sign posted at the site, you may enter, you may walk, but this is a brownfield, and explaining what is a brownfield. It had been a landfill and a garbage dump for 75 years in the days before landfills were regulated, before it ever became a Leaf transfer station. So I think that's the most important point that I want to make tonight.
Perfect time. Mr. Sohn?
Alan Sohn, S-O-H-N. Almost 2 years ago, the Township Council and this Planning Board were part of an effort to create a self-storage facility along Route 4 on property that Ms. Heskins Davis has made rather clear is part of the Route 4 redevelopment. This was ready to go ahead. This was being put forward. There was a consistency review done here in this chambers by this board. And right before that, the day before, a letter was received from Green Acres saying that this land was protected. The information was based on information that was collected by neighbors, including Danny Beer and other neighbors, Dr. Powers, and other active people who did the research that the Township Council had not done, that the Township Attorney had not done, and that this Planning Board had not done. I think what is incredibly meaningful is to see that Ms. Heskins Davis has laid out not only what belongs on there, but has laid out with this Dunkin' Donuts story what the consequences would have been. Imagine if a self-storage facility had been constructed, and imagine if it turned out that it was discovered, as it seems clear to me, that this land is protected and does belong on a recreation and open space inventory. Imagine trying to fulfill a 20-to-1 exchange in a township like Teaneck that is almost 100% developed. it is critical that before we start doing mind games of trying to figure out how we could figure out an exchange or how we could develop this, that we go through the information that Ms. Heskins Davis has very carefully laid out. Most specifically, Ordinance 1279, which was passed in April 1964, which lays out not only other parks, Terhune and OT, etc., but also lays out protected properties that are part of the Route 4 Greenbelt. Look at the deed restrictions and the deeds that are included in there. It is critical that we get this right. And I think it's so meaningful to me to see that the guidelines here to make sure that this Route 4 Greenbelt is protected, and that we do indeed have an accurate recreation and open space inventory that not only lists those properties that had been on there, but lists all of the properties that have been protected and are due protection. Because if we fail to do that, we will pay the price, not only in losing that property, but in paying the fines and penalties, and in the loss of prospective Green Acres grants that we should be getting to fund our recreation activities. Thank you.
I have a point of clarification, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
My recollection of the property Mr. Selman is referring to was the Siegel and Siegel property, which on the map was not represented in a restricted way. My recollection of the presentation we just saw. Is that correct? Is my right? The self-storage was a Siegel and Siegel issue, and on the map that we saw, that was not Greenbelt property.
Correct.
Okay. Just wanted to make that
I think he was on that council, by the way, also.
No, I was just,
Again, no, he was talking about this planning board and that council that he was on.
Okay.
Excuse me.
I thought that property in question was the one that was immediately east of Siegel.
The other side, no, but that was the purple
Mr.
property.
Powers, do you want to speak?
That was the purple property, Howard. Not that it wasn't.
Okay, guys, come on, please. Mr. Powers, would you like to speak?
I would, thank you. Chuck Powers, Teaneck. The purple property to the east of Siegel and Siegel was identified by Green Acres as property it had helped the township buy in the early 60s.
But not on her map. You referred to her map. You referred to her map as saying something that wasn't true. That's what it's about.
What?
Okay, Mr. Powers, do you want to speak?
I'm only.
Mr. Powers, your time is going. Would you like to speak?
Time out from him. That property, that purple property, was identified by Green Acres in a letter to the council that it believed belonged on the Rossi. But let's make sure we understand. What it is that Green Acres is concerned with is whether or not property will be in perpetuity used for either recreation or conservation. And the township has complete discretion as to how it wants to divide that all up, as we're seeing vis-a-vis Argonne. That's a different set of questions than the issue about, but we do know that there was also a ordinance passed in 1966 that identified many of those properties along the Greenbelt as belonging forever on the Greenbelt, and that had happened after Teaneck had received money from Green Acres, which therefore made that property what it is that Green Acres will tell you it believes should be on the Rossi. But then how you decide to use it between conservation and recreation is up to the town. Okay.
Thank you. Are you familiar with that document?
Yeah, I'm familiar with that document, and looking at the map, I just want to go back to the office and double check the mapping. If the mapping is incorrect, I'll send it to the planning board without delay, but I don't want to.
No, so all I'm saying to you is that, if you're familiar with that, so I would suggest, since we're going to have, not voting on this tonight, we're going to vote on it either in August or September, whatever we decide next. You're going to update this based on, I guess, from your presentation to council and the council and public input there and our input and public input tonight, why don't you get those ordinances and that letter and that stuff and update
It's on.
the map as best as we to those documents and bring that back to us at the next.
I agree. What I'd like to be able, is it okay?
Yeah.
What I'd like to be able to do is, we heard a series of recommendations at the council meeting. We had a very robust conversation tonight, of which I really appreciate. Any changes that we make to the open space and recreation plan, I'm going to provide it in a summary memo right in the front, with the page that it's on and the map that was changed, if a map was changed, so it's easy for the planning board to see.
So we don't have to
Do you
read
ever think about like doing ESP? Because that's what I was going to ask you to do.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
So I was going to suggest that to just give us exactly where the changes are and the updates, and if it's diagrams, to just change the diagram, what it was and what was changed. So,
Yes.
perfect. Okay. Your time's up.
My time's up.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. So it's closed to the public. Now we're going to go for board member comments. We'll start at this side since we got a lot from that side, right? Cap, you have to say a word. You're good. You're good. Mark?
No, I appreciate the hard work of the plan. It just, it bothers me when people get up here and make statements that they think are factual that aren't, or clearly not, that we saw tonight weren't factual.
So-
We're trying to go on the record to say this happened, and we were all sitting here and didn't see it happen, so. It's frustrating.
Karen?
Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. It makes it very easy as seeing it for the first time to understand it.
Close to it.
I think what you're going to come back to us with next time will make it, our brains work a little bit differently. I think it'll make it easier for us to understand if we can see the changes one at a time.
I think, first I want to thank you, Ms. Davis, for the presentation. I think it was very, very thorough. And also nice to hear it a second time, too, because it kind of really brings a lot of things out. I think that it definitely is necessary for us to really address this because of the fact that, open space and recreation is so vital to any community. And I think Teaneck is known for the desirability of homeowners wanting to purchase homes here, and there's so much to be said about having a plan and having a comprehensive plan that speaks to open space and recreation. So here again, thank you.
Vice Chair?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Ms. Heskins Davis for the presentation. It was really excellent, and I really you brought me back a little bit because I was on the council that created the trust, and that helped create the board. So it's really it's just really very it's a really good feeling to be able to see that we're really moving in the right direction. We've come so far in holding our own, and that for someone like yourself who travels up and down the state doing this kind of stuff, that you commended Teaneck the way it operates and the way it has operated and the way it continues to operate. So thank you very much.
I have no questions, thank you.
Tony, I know it's your first day, but...
I just want to thank Ms. Davis for the presentation. It was very informative, and it's my first meeting, so I'm just learning a lot, so I appreciate it.
Harold, one?
Ms. Davis, I also want to say thank you. It was very informative, eye-opening, and it makes me appreciate even more my open space and my parks as I drive around and I see how well used they are and what can be done, what should be done. But I really appreciate this, really.
I too thank
I didn't call you. I think you used up your time
I
already.
anticipated it.
I think you used up your time already.
Uh-oh.
I was going to skip you. Do you still have more to say?
Well, then I have nothing to say. Oh, wait a second, I do. I am so optimistic regarding a plan like this being presented. We consider the lands around us, the township itself,
And the master plan, to me, is like such an important document. And to say, you know, a green belt is semi-sacred in a sense, I hope that we do agree after discussion that this is so beneficial to maintain and preserve and have for the future that we do in fact lock it in. Thank you.
Vice Chair.
I just wanted to add also, I really I want to commend Glenna for her leadership throughout so many years. In so many different capacities. It's just, you know, I raised my 4 children in this town, and we've used the parks and recreation over and over again, and I really just want to commend you for a tremendous job.
So, thank you for a wonderful presentation. It was round 2 for me. I tried to go to council meeting the other night, but I wasn't physically well enough, so I watched it on television. You're good on TV, but you're better in person. The presentation was wonderful. It stole my just I want to thank Glenn also, so thank you. I just had my 29-year anniversary here in Teaneck, so I raised my kids here as well, and a wonderful 29 years here, and actually was born and raised in New York, and this was my transition year of 4 years in Jersey and New York, so I think I'm now officially a Jersey boy. So I think it's fantastic. I mean, I've been on the planning board for quite a number of years, so I did the last element and the last round of this, and also the parks plan and the open space and the master plan and the multiple times that we've redone the master plan. So this has all been exciting, and I think you did a great job with this.